How's it going, guys? Welcome to today's video. Today we're in the shop, as you can see, and we're going to be working on the squeeze chute again. We're going to be doing phase 2, so let me show you what that is. So when you look at this squeeze chute, I'm giving you a big hint right here. What's missing? Do you notice anything missing here? So if you guessed or noticed that there's a gigantic hole down here, you're on the right track. See, this needs to be filled in so that when cattle, or especially calves, come in here, they're not trying to duck out the bottom and escape. So you might be kind of wondering why they made these pieces removable. I mean, after all, it'd be a lot easier if this was just one solid piece, but there's a good reason for this. What you can do is get them in the chute here, pull these lower panels off, and get a calf's head up in there to nurse. Or if the cattle's having a problem with their feet or anything like that, you just have access to the animal where it's safe for them and it's safe for you. Originally, these lower panels were made of wood. There was like two by 10s or 2 by 12s here when I first got the chute, and they were all rotten. So I replaced them at the time with some 2 by 8s and 2 by 4s up high. Well, the problem with wood, especially in this sort of scenario, and this actually did happen to me, is I had a cow in this chute and she was able to kind of hook her hooves on the gaps between the boards, and she actually broke one, got her foot out, and that was a mess. And we don't want that to happen again. So I'm gonna do what I should have done the first time and make these out of metal. So I know that I cut these pieces out a long time ago and I stuck them down here. Oh yeah, here they are. All right. So this will tell you about how quickly I get things done. I cut those pieces out before I ever even considered starting a YouTube channel. So we're not gonna see me cutting the pieces out, but you've seen me cut metal before. It's not a big deal. Let's go ahead and put those pieces together and weld them up and see how everything fits. Okay, so after measuring the channel and the squeeze chute, I realized that some 2-inch square tubing is gonna fit in there pretty much perfectly. So I'm using this 2-inch by 2-inch square with the 1/8 inch wall. So it's not the heaviest stuff, but it's gonna be fine for this. And we don't want this thing to weigh a ton when we're finished, because I do want it to be somewhat easy to remove, on and off. So this stuff's gonna do the trick. So essentially all we're doing here is just welding up a rectangle. And I mean, just to break that down as simply as possible, it's 4 90-degree angles. So when I'm doing that, to keep things true, I love to use these jigs. Now, let me fit the metal up here and I'll show you how this thing works. So right here is a great example of why I like using these clamps, because look at this gap I have here. That's just because my saw, when I tried to cut a 45, it wasn't perfectly on 45. All right, let's go ahead and tack this up. So when I'm welding up a square, or a rectangle in this case, like this, I like to just go through and tack all my joints, because what will happen is if I went ahead and completed that weld, when you weld something, it pulls the metal a little bit. So if I completely welded this one, completely welded this one, when I get back to this one, they're not gonna line up because the heat from the weld kind of pulls and warps the metal. So the way to get around that is just do a couple quick tacks on your corners, then we can test fit it. If we need to change anything, it's really easy, but that's what we're doing. Okay, so that's not fitting. Remember before when I said I only tacked the 4 corners in case I need to make some changes later? Well, this is what I'm talking about. All right, well, it was a bit of a struggle, but this thing actually fits in there really good. So we should have just enough room to fit some thin sheet metal in there once we smooth off the welds. And there's still a lot of junk and rust and mud in this channel here, so that's kind of why it's having a tough time fitting in there. But no, this is gonna be great. All right, guys, now that we got the rectangle pieces done finally, we can go ahead and weld some cross supports in there. Okay guys, so if you're wondering why I put these supports so far towards the outside, the reason is because when this is on the chute, these supports are going to be right about where the cow's feet are. So when she's in there jumping around and kicking with her feet, she's going to be hitting these supports, not just the vulnerable sheet metal. So what we're going to do next is just put it on there and just make sure everything fits before we go ahead and complete welding this. All right guys, so as you can see, this is still fitting really good here, and this is what I was talking about before. These supports, now you can see they're right about where the cow's legs are gonna be. So this should work. We can go ahead and finish welding this up. Alright guys, well, because of my little mistake with the tape measurer, this ended up taking me a lot longer than I thought. So unfortunately, this is where we're going to have to stop for today. But on this piece, all I have left to do is just to grind these welds smooth. And no, it's not because I'm embarrassed of them, it's because I need that sheet metal to fit up on there flush. So after I get these ground smooth, then we can go ahead and cut out the sheet metal and weld it on there. And this thing will be done and ready for paint. So on Friday's video, my plan is to get the sheet metal cut out and weld it on this thing. And what am I going to use to cut out the sheet metal? Might have something to do with what's in this box. Thanks for hanging out in the shop with me tonight, guys. I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.